Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to this week's AI Guild's live show on Wednesday. Our title today is Neural Image Search Engine. My name is Chris Armbruster, and my guest today, speaking about the Neural Image Search Engine and his career in data and AI, is Cristian Mitroi. Cristian, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Cristian, you're a senior AI engineer at Jina AI. You've come a long way. But I wanted to ask you to actually go back to the beginning and say when did data and AI get you interested?
Sure. So my career or my education started in linguistics, which actually set a sort of foundation for my interest in NLP. That's my main focus in machine learning and deep learning at Gina at the moment. But then I realized that I didn't want to just do linguistics, so I moved into computer science and moved abroad. I was originally from Romania, but I moved abroad to Copenhagen in Denmark for my second bachelor in computer science. And then towards the end of it, I discovered machine learning. I did an online course, I think on Udacity, and discovered it was something very simple, some like SVM training. But the fact that you could learn from data without explicitly describing the algorithms blew my mind at that point. It was something so fascinating for me that I knew I had to do this for my master's degree and hopefully for my career. And yeah, I signed up for a master's degree in IT and cognition at the University of Copenhagen, which was a combination of different subjects around machine learning, NLP, but also computer vision, data science, a lot of different things. And yeah, then I graduated and moved to Berlin, and I've worked in two startups here, both of them in deep learning, specifically in NLP. And yeah, that's how I ended up at Gina, where I'm now working mostly on an NLP project that has not yet been made public, but we are testing it and figuring out how to best meet the needs of our target users for this product.
Thank you, Christian. So indeed, you're a senior AI engineer. You mentioned the NLP. I would like to take this in two parts. So first, I would like to ask you what it means to be a senior, and then return to the NLP part. So, senior AI engineer, how did you get there? What does that mean to you?
Right. Well, it was quite a surprising journey for me too. I did not consider myself a senior at the time when this was brought up. It was actually my mentor in Jina AI that brought it up during one of our discussions, and I realized that I'm almost there. What always scared me about it is the ownership and responsibility aspect of it, which I thought that I couldn't handle. But actually, the more and more I thought about it, is that, well, that's the sort of thing that actually motivates me. So why am I scared about it? So in the end, I just realized, okay, I need to actually accept this and use it as a sort of motivation and be more engaged with my work and with the company and my colleagues. And I did go and went down the round of being a senior and taking more ownership um, within the company, within the team. And it did feel like a bit more work in terms of managing all the things that you're working on and breaking down tasks and guiding juniors. But at the same time, I realized that this is actually what motivates me a lot. Being the sort of person that organizes work and thinks about a problem, not just in implementing it, but how to plan it as well. I think that's for me what being a senior is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing, so to speak, your readiness to take on more responsibility. Um, so you're an AI engineer. We said at Gina, you said something about NLP. You also mentioned that you're building a product, but it's not quite ready to show yet. But nevertheless, so to speak, what is it that you do at Gina AI? What can you tell us?
Right. So Jina AI is a company that has several products. The core product is a open source library called Jina, which is a open source library for performing neural search tasks. Now, I guess the next question is, what is neural search?
What is a neural search exactly? Yes.
Yeah, I can read your mind. So neural search is basically something quite new. Is taking the informational retrieval technology into the deep learning domain. So instead of using simplistic keyword matching, think of a traditional SQL search where you do some sort of keyword matching, or think of like traditional search products that you could use. Um, and replace that logic with a deep learning model that can understand any sort of data, not just text, but image, audio, video. As long as there's a model for it, you can put it into Jina and build a smarter, more context aware search engine. So if you think about the problem of text search and you search for a sentence, it's not just about finding those specific words, but finding synonyms or finding words that appear in the same context to those words that you search for. And that's the key breakthrough that deep learning powered search allows you to do. And then once you scale to video and audio and image, it becomes even more powerful because those things in the past could not be searched in this way. There's no like keyword approach to images. You could tag them, but that's not the same as looking at an image and comparing this image to another image visually, which you can do with CNN models and other models that are now being released.
Okay. I have two questions now. So
Yeah.
actually, one, so and they come together. So this is upgrading the way we can search and contextualize images, video, audio. Okay, so who's the user of this, and what do you have? Can you describe what the search would look like, right? Because if it's a text search, we type it in.
Mhm.
So now it's an image search. So what are we going to do, and who's going to do this?
Right. Uh, yeah, good questions. The first question is a bit harder to explain, so I'll get back to that to answer the second one.
Hmm.
So the way you input data is using something we call a document, which is an abstraction within Jina. This document can contain any sort of data, um, audio, video, image, and based on this document, you then send it into the Jina pipeline, and then it either gets pre-processed or it gets embedded or it gets stored or different other functionalities. So that's how data travels through the Jina pipeline using all these abstractions that we've built. Um, and for the second question, who will be the user? It's since it's such a knowledge specific task. So you need to understand a bit about machine learning in order to know how to build these pipelines. We are trying to build products that are out of the box solutions for different domains, um, but we haven't yet agreed on what will be the first couple of products that we focus on and how do we deliver them. We are getting close, but we haven't decided on it. But what people can do now is build their own. But you do need to be a developer, and you do need to know at least a bit something about machine learning, how do deep learning models work, and which work for your data. And once you have that knowledge, and we got documentation, and we have some tutorials and some blog posts and some videos on our YouTube as well you can check out. It's pretty easy. It's like you're coding a pipeline. You're coding something similar. You could think to like a TensorFlow a graph or an sklearn pipeline where you combine all these steps together into one pipeline, and then the data is sent through it and performs all sorts of operations on it.
Okay. And you said that it's possible to play around with it. So is there a software developer kit, an SDK, or a sandbox?
Yeah.
What does this look like?
Right. So there are different ways you can play around with it. If you download Gina from GitHub, there
Hmm.
are three Hello World type examples.
Hmm.
One of them is for image search. One of them is a chatbot-like application, so text-based. And the third one is cross-modal search, multimodal search, where you combine text and image into one document and then get back results that match that query, which are images in this case. But we have blog posts about different types of data, and we have basic user guides for working with audio, video, etc. Um,
Okay.
and we do provide a selection of components or modules for the pipeline that you can use to pre-process data, index data, and so on our hub marketplace, which is hub.jina.ai, kind of similar to, I guess, Hugging Face transformers, where you can just download whatever you need. It tells you how to incorporate them and what they each do. And it's kind of like building a puzzle or a Lego out of small pieces. Um, and then you can build a MVP for whatever your problem domain was.
Understood. Does that mean that this is also, so to speak, so you've been at Gina quite a while. We're at the moment talking about how early users or early adopters can look at what you're doing. Tell us a bit more about the company that you're working for and where this is going. I think I noticed on your LinkedIn profile hiring.
Mhm.
So what's going on?
Right. Yeah, so we are hiring. If you look at Gina.ai, you will see a page that goes to hiring, or you can look on LinkedIn, and we are hiring across different positions. You can look there. About the company in general, it started, I think, a year and a half ago, or maybe almost 2 years, when one of our founders, Han Xiao, developed this service called BERT as a service, which became quite popular on GitHub, which is a way of um, having an embedder model, this BERT model, be a service that you just connect to, get your embeddings for your sentence, and then do whatever you want to do with those embeddings. But made it like easy to do, easy to deploy, all of these things. And the idea of using then neural search and deploying it and taking care of the pipeline grew out of that. And that's what Gina is. The Gina framework itself is a framework for both deploying, developing, managing, scaling neural search pipelines. And internally, we have other products. Some of them are open source, some of them are partially open source. Um, the other core one is the doc array, which is a way of working with data. And the other one is a fine tuner, which automatically fine tunes your model based on your problem domain and your ground truth set. So that's partially open source, and we are working on a enterprise version at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. So thanks for the overview and kind of the run through. Just as a reminder, if you're watching and you want to explore it, go and find the GitHub or go and find the webpage where you will also find the blog at Gina.ai. And actually, there's a chance people have to kind of meet you and Gina and explore this, which is 3 months from now at the Data Lift Summit in Berlin from the 22nd to the 24th of June, where you will be giving a workshop. That has a title that immediately reminds me of my children. That's called Who's That Pokemon? Building a Neural Image Search Engine. So, actually, my first question is what's that about that Pokemon?
Right. So if you remember the Pokemon cartoons from the 90s or early 2000s, there was this segment in the middle of the show before going to break where they would
Yep.
show you an outline of a Pokemon, but it was blackened, so you didn't see its face. And then you were asked, who is that Pokemon? And I enjoyed that as a child a lot because it's kind of like a small puzzle you get to solve. And then when you came back from the break, they would show you the answer. And they were very easy, of course. It's a child's puzzle, but it was still very engaging for me as a child. And what we did in this workshop is try to build an image search engine that solves this problem, so the outline detection and matching, using Gina. But of course, it does a lot more than that, and we showed that in the workshop. There are two
Why is
problems
the
to answer.
outline detection and the matching important?
Right. Yeah, well, it depends on the problem. In this case, it's Pokemon detection, but you can
Hmm.
imagine more complex problems like detecting a building, detecting a person by the outline of their profile, all sorts of questions like that. So it's not a classic image search problem, but it's interesting on its own. And the other problem that we're solving, which is probably a bit more interesting and a bit more universal, is stance variation detection. So you have the same entity, the same Pokemon, but in different stances, which you can then generalize to people or to cars from different angles or objects from different angles.
So the stance variation is actually about making sure that I'm looking at the same thing.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and this workshop will cover the basics of Jina from this perspective and some advanced topics about how to use your own model and how to implement a fine-tuning process within Jina so you can fine-tune on the problem that you have. And it's using an open source data set of Pokemon that is available on the internet if you search for it.
Okay, thank you. So on the 24th of June, you'll be holding this 3-hour workshop and people can come and join you. You're doing it together with Maximilian Werk, just so that the audience knows. He's the director of engineering at Jina AI and a colleague of yours. If you're running this 3-hour workshop, and you said at the beginning, you studied linguistics, then you did a bachelor in computer science, if I remember correctly, then you put a master's on top. What are the requirements for joining your workshop? What do you expect from participants that they can already do before joining you?
It's not a high requirement entry. You need to know a bit of Python, um, and I think that's about it. You need to understand how Python classes work. You need to understand how subclassing classes works. That's a key component of how we can modularize components in Jina. And if you know a bit about machine learning, it helps you, but it's not a hard requirement for this workshop because the models already exist and we just download them. We explain the basic idea of the model, but you don't need to understand the paper or know deep learning.
Interesting that you say that. There was a moment earlier in our interview where you also said that something that really got to you is the power of application. Yeah, this ability to I don't know, work with pre-trained models or work with stuff that already works and kind of deploy it again. Is this also kind of the scenario that you envisage for the future? That is your product built in such a way that lots of people can use it?
Exactly. That is one of the core principles in Jina. We started off more as an engineering company, not so much a data science or research company.
Mm-hmm.
So our focus was always how do we take existing models, which are already great, and make them easy to use for people in neural search tasks. So how do we package them? What sort of API can we expose so that we can easily integrate as many of them as possible? And we've been gradually moving towards, okay, how can we fine tune them to fit somebody's problem? But our core assumption and our core agreement is that the best models are not going to be done by small startups or by companies that only want a neural search application. They don't care about the model. They don't care about what's the state of the art. They just want something that kind of works for their problem. So the big companies that do research like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, OpenAI, you trust them to do the hardcore stuff, and smaller companies will fine tune and adapt and make good APIs on top, like Gina. And then the end customer will be a company that doesn't really care about any of that stuff. Really, they care about just deploying it and using it.
Understood. So you're to some extent you're working for the end customer there, allowing them to kind of get on with it. So back to that workshop on the 24th of June, we spoke about the requirements. You've kind of revealed what's going to happen in the middle. After 3 hours, where do you what kind of experience do you expect people to have? Where will they be?
Yeah. So in the workshop, we cover the basics of what the Genome pipeline can do and what are the abstractions that we use, the building blocks. Um, and how you can replace them, play around with them, change their parameters, and like I said, how to fine tune. So at the end of this, you should have a pretty advanced understanding of Jina. And if your company has some sort of problem or some existing solution around search, you should be already prepared to think about how can I make that better using Jina and open source libraries. Because all we show there is going to be open source, so you can do it for free. The models are open source, Jina is open source. So yeah, I think that's the end goal for an attendee. If you have a problem, we are pretty confident that GNAT can help you achieve better quality, or at least think about it in a different way that can be more generalizable,
Okay.
versus very specific keyword-based matching that you would have in a text search, for example.
Indeed. To kind of recap and close this off for today, we're talking about a neural image search engine, and you've spoken to some of the use cases or problems. Would you be able to summarize what you think are the most common problems that you can tackle successfully with this type of search engine?
Right. One of the key areas we are researching is multimodal search, specifically for e-commerce type websites. So think about it like this. Think about Zalando, like a classic example within Germany, but it can be any website that has images and description. And then when a user searches, they search by text, but they could also search by image. So they could upload a similar item or a similar type of look that they want in their clothing or in their apartment if it's about furniture. And what Gina would allow you via deep learning models is to find similar objects in both directions, if that makes sense. From the text to the image, but also from the image to the text. So it's both multimodal and cross-modal, a modal in this case being a type of data. And that's one classic example that we are pretty advanced in researching and coming up with a good basic solution that we can give to users. And the other one is information retrieval with an open domain corpus. So you have a vast set of documents, PDF, text files, slideshows, etc., and you want to ask a question. Gina would then, because it allows you to extract data from all of these different sources and embed them in the same space with the model, at search time, you would find it much easier to get the correct answer, even if it's across different types of source of data, if that makes sense. And on this, we are researching and we've implemented a sort of prototype on our website, on our documentation website, which is a kind of a chatbot that you can ask questions to about Gina and how to use Gina.
Okay, thank you very much, Cristian. Thank you very much for this introduction to the search engine that you're building based on neural images. Thanks also for talking about the upcoming workshop. Please remember, it's going to be in Berlin from the 22nd to the 24th of June. If you want to get your ticket, it's on the datalift.eu. And for today, I think we're closing. So, Cristian, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.